at us,
Here we
technology.
are. Technology.
We're good at this stuff.
I'm gonna prime this conversation by showing you my phone holder. It's a shoe.
It's good.
It's a shoe, and it's
Is that some Guinness?
well. You know what? I'm really shameful to say that that's actually a Stella Dark.
Oh, I've had that before. It's good.
It's good, but it's
Dark
not
lager.
a Guinness.
Right. The foam had threw me off.
Yeah, it's not holiday specific, but I'm okay with that as long as you are.
I'm totally okay with it. I have some tea myself.
Awesome.
So thanks so much for joining. I am super excited to talk to you. We some people are joining in the room, and then this conversation will be available to check out. It will survive past this moment. People can go back on Instagram and watch it and
Fantastic.
learn about the little gems of wisdom that you have imparted to us.
Well, happy to divulge as much as I can.
Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to ask you, so we've known each other for a couple decades now. And I remember a time when, so you worked in kitchens and you were, involved in food preparation and cooking and, working on lines and things like that. And you always loved to cook at your home. You're always making meals. And I remember a time when you were completely opposed to going to culinary school, even though you seemed to have a gift and it's just like what made sense. So at what moment did that switch for you where you were like, hell no to, okay, maybe I'll think about it?
Yeah, I still am against culinary school, actually.
But you went though, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
But for me, it was kind of a way out.
Okay.
Because granted, since I was 15, since I got into cooking in restaurants in high school, I always aspired to go to culinary school, and I always wanted to. My mom and I always talked about me doing that, but the more I worked in the industry, the more I realized that it wasn't necessary, and it's very expensive for most schools
Mm-hmm.
and go to a community college. But when I did actually decide to go to culinary school, there weren't many community colleges even offering those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So the options that are there now were not there before.
Okay. So it was more like you didn't want to spend the money to do something that wasn't going to teach you anything you didn't already know.
Well, not necessarily that I didn't know, not necessarily that I wouldn't learn anything, but the most valuable culinary knowledge is based on actually working in a kitchen and working with professional cooks and chefs and learning how that side of the business works while you're there in that environment. And for example, a lot of the kids that I went to school with, they had never worked in a restaurant in their life.
Mm.
And they're spending $40,000 a year for culinary school education, and they don't even know if they even want to be in that environment or if they will actually enjoy that environment when they get into a real kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So for culinary school students that have never worked in a kitchen, then I think it's a really bad idea. I always say that if you want to go to culinary school and you're really passionate about it, work in a kitchen for 2 or 3 years, and
Mm-hmm.
not just a kitchen, work in a kitchen that is going to have the same standards that a professional higher end kitchen will expect from you.
Mm-hmm.
The basics are being on time and being prepared when you get to work, and being there and being there open-minded and ready to absorb the information. You know, those are the basics, but beyond the basics, there's also all the things that people don't tell you. And it's like, be ready to work 10, 12 hours a day and
take direction from an asshole, because the
right.
head chef usually is.
And exactly, be prepared to have your opinion not matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to understand that your opinion probably won't matter for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like, it doesn't matter how many great culinary ideas you have or how many great shows you've seen on TV and how many great things you've eaten when you traveled to Europe. When you get into the restaurant world and you're working for somebody else, none of that matters. You know, really, what really matters to them is that you're able to be to work on time and follow the and reproduce what they want you to reproduce the way they want it every time, every day. And, you know, those are the things that if you went to culinary school without understanding the industry, that could really be a shock to you, you know, because I did work with a lot of students, and I still see people that come into our restaurants every day who were told that they were a great cook and that they have great ideas, and even worked in a restaurant or two and they have great ideas, and they get a job and they think that that's what restaurants are hiring them for. Like that's how we're going to benefit from their hire, you know, and they don't understand that, you know, the reality is that a good hire for most chefs is somebody who's going to be producing and reproducing, you know.
Would you rather hire somebody who like was a hard worker and just like you knew was like a quick learner that had no culinary experience, or somebody that went to culinary school but like had never worked on a line before?
I would say we've had better luck with people that didn't have culinary experience but understood the demands of the job. I'm not going to say that either one or the other is always going to be more desirable or not, but I think somebody who has the appetite to learn and they really want to put the work in is the most crucial point, you know. Like, you know, I think work ethic is strong with somebody regardless what they're going into, you know. Like it could be going into real estate, which you are very well aware of, takes many years to even get to a point where you can support yourself as that being your primary income, you know. And same with culinary, you know. It's like, to think that you're going to come in and have this be an instant end just because you went to culinary school is, I think that's not fair to either party, you know. That's work for the person who expects that as a hire, and for a manager or chef, you know, to have somebody that expects themselves to come in and be able to be of that much value to your operation right off the bat is probably, you know, there's going to be a big disconnect there, you know. So I think having somebody that was really hungry and that wanted to learn and had an open mind is definitely more valuable. Yeah.
Do you think that you would have had as many doors open to you had you not had that professional culinary education?
You know, that's really difficult to answer, but I do think that you know, up until I went to culinary school, I was working for 12 years, and I would say that I never didn't get a job that I wanted.
Okay.
Even prior to going to culinary school, but I also wasn't applying for executive chef roles. So it's kind of hard for me to say that same response to my applications and to my interviews would be reflected. I went into a more high level of restaurant work. I do think that because when I went to California after culinary school, I ended up working at a lot of boutique hotels,
Mm-hmm.
which are by nature a little more organized and require a little more organization, and they had a little more on the line. I think that having that degree did get me where I wanted to be a little more quickly. And even the first job that I hired into in San Francisco when I moved there was a fine dining job at an independent restaurant. And I do think that I may not have had that opportunity as quickly when I moved there if I didn't have that on my resume. However, I don't think that as somebody who hires a lot of restaurant chefs and cooks and dishwashers and even front of house people, we don't necessarily use that as any kind of barometer as to what experience level we're going to be finding in an applicant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like the resume is a gateway, but seeing people with 1 and 2 years of restaurant experience with each job that they have on their resume goes a lot further than saying that you had a culinary degree,
Right.
because we see a lot of people who spend $150,000-$200,000 on a culinary school education in Hyde Park, New York, and then you look at their resume before and after they went to culinary school, and they worked at 10 restaurants for a month or two or 6 months each, and then after 3 years they have 8 or 10 experiences under their resume, and it's like, yeah, you went to all these great restaurants, but you were pretty much there just playing and being.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not there to retain a position for over a year, then that doesn't really prove that you have any kind of follow through or any kind of
Yeah.
you built up.
Yeah. It tells a story about their character if they are only going to stay somewhere for a month or two at a time.
Yeah, and a lot of fine dining restaurants you can get into, they may not pay you,
Mm-hmm.
so to have a handful of like Michelin star restaurants on your resume that you worked at for 6 months to a year, a majority of those could have been unpaid jobs,
Mm-hmm.
where of course they're going to keep you there as long as you want because you're not getting paid. And granted, you are getting a lot of great experience from being in that environment. And I will never discount the value of working with a really high end or high level team, where you're going to be working with people that are really turned on by what they're doing and that are going to be engaged every day and that they're going to be inspiring to you as a chef or as a cook. That's, I think that's a beautiful thing. But the difference between being there for a year unpaid and then being there as an employee who's getting actually paid from the team is a different story.
Mm-hmm.
So
So after culinary school, you went out to California, and that's when you started getting those first sort of like executive chef positions. Like, what was the first restaurant where you were executive chef?
so I moved there in 2010, and then I applied for what was my dream job, which was at uh, Chef Chris Cosentino's restaurant, and I met with him. I staged there, and
You what?
stage stage is like a working interview where
Okay, got it.
you work for free.
Mm-hmm.
You work a shift. They don't pay you, but you get to work next to one of their,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the operation and you meet the team and you prep the food and then you execute the food during service. And
Mm-hmm.
um, it's really fun. It's a great opportunity, and it's so fun that even after I've been in permanent job positions, I will sometimes stage in a restaurant, even if I don't need the job. You know, say, hey, can I?
Like a cameo chef.
Right. Well, you're not the chef at that point. You're like a cameo. You're their cameo bitch, essentially.
Okay.
Like you do whatever they want you to do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if they want you to peel potatoes for 4 hours, then you're going to do that. If they want you to help them actually do something more involved, then you would be lucky to do that too. But you're you're by no means a celebrity there, and you're by no means treated better than anybody else there. But your reward is that you get to see how a whole nother team operates.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want the job there, then you really do want to see how they operate, because you want to make sure that you feel good about the way that they operate and the way that their culture is. But
That they have the rapport with the rest of your team too.
yeah, these are people that you're going to be with
Mm-hmm.
anybody else in your life. Probably you're going to spend 8 to 10 hours a day with these people. You don't spend that much time with your family and your loved ones, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You spend maybe 2 hours or 3 hours with your loved ones, unless it's COVID. But yeah, so it's a really valuable resource. That one thing that when I did open our own restaurants, I realized that was something that I missed the most, is being able to meet and work with other teams. Because
Mm-hmm.
as a chef, that's always something that you have as an opportunity to kind of engage with folks and share ideas, share new thoughts and philosophies with people.
So you go get your stage on.
Yeah, get your stage on.
How do you spell that?
Well, it's stage is short for stagiaire.
Okay.
It's all
Got
French stuff, So
Gotcha. Okay.
the French Culinary Foundation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the French,
Okay.
the French normalized the culinary world. So because they normalized it and standardized it, they also got to have their language be kind of part of the permanent standard
Mm-hmm.
voice. But so stage is short for a stagiaire, and stagiaire is meaning like a short apprenticeship, or
Okay.
so to make it more easily digestible, we just say stage, which is STAGE.
Got it.
But yeah, just an abbreviation. Another name would be a working interview.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um, so that was your dream job, and did you get hired in as a sous chef or as the executive chef?
No, I didn't get the job at all.
No.
No,
Okay.
okay. Chef Chris Cosentino is this Italian American chef who, in 2010, he opened his restaurant called Encanto, probably in like '08 or '09, and just a brilliant chef. Italian style cuisine, but very, very contemporary. He was also a chef that was bringing a lot of attention to using organ meats and offals, doing a lot of charcuterie and using parts of the animal that weren't normally used and making them really sexy and desirable. And it was, just a really, really interesting place to be able to cook. And I landed in SF, and I met with them, and I did a stage with their team and had a great time. And at the end of our stage, we sat down, and he said, "I'm sorry, I don't have anything right now. I'll have something in a month." But I had just moved there, and I couldn't afford to not work for a month. So
Mm-hmm.
he was really gracious enough to call another friend of his. Chef's name is Ravi Kapoor, and Chef Ravi was opening a new restaurant, farm to table restaurant in the financial district called it's called Prospect. And so Chef Chris didn't have a job for me. Called his friend. His friend called me, had me stage, and I was hired in like a week.
Mm-hmm. And you
So
helped open that restaurant,
I
basically.
did, yeah, yeah. And that's kind of I think that's really cool to talk about that connection, because it important to talk about how the restaurant community is tight knit. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
this is a chef who I admired when I was living here and in Chicago, and whose cookbooks I had read. I went there, interviewed, worked with him for one day, sat down with this chef that I was really inspired by, and he was able to get me a job in within San Francisco, within just by his good word, you know,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that he had never met until that night, and that ended up being a really great connection, you know. So it's like, you know, I can't stress enough like the value of just meeting great people and putting yourself forward and building a great community, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
showing that you're really hungry and that you want to learn under people that can share their knowledge with you, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what happened? So what came next after that?
Um, actually, really funny. I got the job at Prospect and I worked there for like 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and they had just opened and they had a water main break in the roof in the ceiling of the building, flooded the whole brand new restaurant, and it ruined probably $500,000 worth of equipment and brand new wood flooring in the dining room.
Probably more than half. Yeah.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. And they shut down for a month
Uh-huh.
to rebuild. And I started a new job, and after 2 or 3 weeks in, I got another 2 weeks paid vacation. So
Okay.
pretty pretty cool because I was still new to the city, and I kind of took a couple weeks paid vacation and ate around San Francisco and got to meet a bunch of cool people and hang out with my brother, and then after they remodeled, went back to work. So good
Okay.
experience.
And then how long were you there?
I was there for about 6 months, and which is kind of funny because I always stress having like a year or two on your resume from each job. But I was there for about 6 months, and I got poached by a friend of mine who had an executive chef job, and he was moving to Portland, and he asked if I wanted to take over his position.
Wow.
So it was my first lead role, and I was very apprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
But he was somebody I respected and somebody that I knew really well, and I knew that if he said that it was going to be a good fit for me, then I should
Mm-hmm.
pursue it, or at least see what it would involve, you know. And so I did end up meeting with him and interviewing with their director of operations and doing the whole stage program for a couple times. And when I found out that it was going to be a good fit, and when I realized that my student loan debt was quickly accruing, and I honestly didn't really, with my initial job there, I probably would not have been able to pay my student loans off
Mm-hmm.
on the normal schedule. So, you know, I was financially motivated at the time too to look for something. Um, but it was also a really good fit. And I met with the chef at Prospect, Chef Robbie, and I told him what was going on. And he's like, hey man, if I had room for you to grow in a management position with us, I would offer it to you. But we have all the staff we need in our management team, and if you have an opportunity to run your own kitchen, then you need to do that, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
he kind of gave me his blessing, and you know, let me know that there were no hard feelings, and that he knew that I needed to look for something of that, you know, of that point on my career or on my resume. So yeah, it ended up working out for both parties, and we still have a really good relationship. So
And what was this new restaurant like that you were heading off to?
it was an Italian cafe and a boutique hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually kind of a pivotal moment because got me into the boutique hotel world, which I worked at Marriott when I was in Detroit, and
Okay.
had such a bad experience that I said I would never work in a hotel again. It was a Union Hotel in Detroit. It was the Marriott downtown and
In the Renaissance Center or
Courtyard across the street.
okay.
I worked at Sweet Lorraine's,
Okay.
and I was a manager there. And being a manager in a union property is very, very challenging, to to say the least. Very disheartening. So I tried that, and it was not a good fit. But I wrote it out until I moved away. But um, I worked for these boutique hotel groups in San Francisco, and it was a different picture because they were run as a hotel, but with an independent restaurant inside the hotel. So it was kind of the best of both worlds, being in an environment that was organized and well supported, but having the creative freedom of an independent restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so that first restaurant was it was called Cafe Adagio, and it was in a restaurant called Hotel Adagio. It was in the theater district of San Francisco. Kind of, they call it the Tenderloin neighborhood, um, and great experience. And I had a great team. I actually met the director of operations there, who kind of was a really big influence and kind of groomed me to become the chef that I am now. You know, he taught me the value of not just being a chef, but understanding the whole front of house management side too. And just because you're a chef doesn't mean that you don't learn and master the financial side, and you don't,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you don't understand these things, then you're going to have bosses above you demanding you to meet certain expectations. But if you're, for example, if you're an executive chef, part of your compensation is based on your performance, your financial performance of the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
If part of your pay is based on getting bonuses for you meeting your quota, and you don't know how they're coming to those to find out if you met that quota, then that there's going to be a big disconnect there. And how are you going to know if in fact you're going to meet the bar, or how to get to that point? So he definitely was very hard on me, and brought me to the realization that you have to understand everything. Even the servers, you have to understand how the servers work. You have to understand how the bartenders work, how the bar manages themselves. So, just having that connectivity, and getting out of that philosophy that I'm a chef and I do the food, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you decided to take that job, what did you have some ideas about, like how you would want to change the menu? Was that even an option that you could do that? Or was it just like, this is the menu, this is the restaurant, you don't have a lot of creativity or leeway here?
No, it was actually, they brought me in wanting to have me kind of, I don't want to say elevate. I hate the word elevate, but to kind of bring new energy into the program,
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll see that more times than not. If somebody's hiring a new executive chef, they're hiring them because they value their creative direction,
Mm-hmm.
and they want them to be able to take the program in a direction that will allow them to advertise new food, and have their PR people advertise a new chef, and have their servers be excited because they can talk about something new on the menu to their guests. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
And
know,
have people want to come back to check out new things.
come back, or maybe they stopped going because they didn't know
Mm-hmm.
what was going on before.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe people that had never been there will have a reason to go because the marketing people and the social media people who are programming for that property now have something exciting to talk about, and that was one of the things I was first taught in when I was sitting down with our PR people is that there you might spend thousands of dollars a month on a PR lady or a PR man who are going to do that promotion, but they're only as good as the material you give them.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have new menu items that are going to be enticing to people and that are going to get people excited to come in and that are going to be really great to eat, then your PR person is just going to be throwing out clip art,
Right.
like throwing out happy hour specials. Like if you don't have something substantive, then you're not going to really get the traction.
Was there anything about that experience that ended up being so much different than you would have anticipated?
Uh, I mean, I think staffing's always the big. It's really fun. I saw this on the news that you can buy an app now that will make a dog bark in the background of your Zoom meeting so you can get off the Zoom meeting.
Or a baby crying.
Or a baby cry, yeah.
I didn't know you had a baby.
Was that your
I'm watching somebody's baby. I have to go. Well, it's been real, Mike, but I have to go change my dog's diaper.
Yep.
So I will see you
dog
later.
Guinness, yeah.
Okay. Where in this timeline did Ema appear for the idea of you moving back to Detroit and opening a restaurant?
Well, Ema didn't appear until I was in Baltimore after I left San Francisco. So 2014, I started working on Ema.
Okay.
But me planning on coming back to Detroit to open a restaurant was 07, 08.
Okay.
Kaku and I, who Kaku.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Kaku.
My brother. Just talked to him yesterday. He's doing great.
He's got a restaurant too. Kaku Poke or something like that.
Kaku Sushi and Poke. Yep.
Kaku Sushi and Poke. I just drove by it the other day. Yeah.
One in Birmingham, one in Bloomfield Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Check. Yep. We're gonna be fishing soon. Yep. Just talked to him yesterday. He's doing
masters.
Yeah. But yeah, we in 07, 08, we talked about opening a restaurant in Detroit, and at that time we were still figuring out where we were as chefs or cooks or individuals, and he was working at Ronin for a decade before he restaurants,
Yep, I remember that.
Left for 12 years, and we talked about it, and I wanted to come back and do something. I didn't know exactly what capacity that would be when I came back. When I left, actually, Kaku and I had some really weird idea. We were going to open an all eel restaurant for a minute.
All eel?
Eel, yeah. Like Japanese barbecue eel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, when I used to eat fish, that eel was one of my favorite things. It's good, really good.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
But Detroit ready for an all eel restaurant in 2008? No.
No, Detroit probably wasn't ready for any restaurants in 2008.
No. Exactly. So
the struggle was real.
It was a good thing that we slept on it. We did our thing. So, but yeah, we talked a lot about it, and we both aspired to be able to do this. And at that time, I didn't know if it was tangible, and even when I moved to Chicago for culinary school, and at that point, I was just cooking and really excited to be working in restaurants and in Chicago and in San Francisco. I was just excited to be able to get some lead roles and to work as executive chef at these restaurants in a food city that I really loved. You know, it wasn't at that point I wasn't really thinking about coming back here and opening a restaurant. You know, I was just really turned on by being in this like super vibrant city, you know. Um, but after 4 years of that, I started getting disenchanted, and I, for this hotel group, I opened five restaurants in, no, four restaurants in 5 years. So what I became was their restaurant opener, which means that I would go to a restaurant hotel that they had acquired. So they were in the business of buying hotels that were struggling and then putting their brand on it and rebranding the restaurant and renovating it and then moving on to the next one. So for 4 years, four restaurants in 5 years, I went to a new restaurant, rebranded it with them, created a new menu, restaffed everything, got everything up and running, and then right when things were running smoothly and were like humming along, they would have me go to another one.
Mm-hmm.
And after 5 years of that, I was just like, you know what, I'm not really down with this anymore. And the first year is the hardest year. You know,
Of course.
you put the work in the first year, you want to ride on your laurels for the next 2 or 3 years because you just created a new concept. And
Mm-hmm.
granted, you still have to deal with the management of it, but the hardest part is the first year. So to see that happen multiple times, I just was not really wanting to put myself through that again. And I'm grateful that I had that experience because it made me a better chef, and it allowed me to really learn how to staff a restaurant and how to create menu items and how to create and market a new restaurant, and to market your menu.
Mm-hmm. And work in a timeline, I can imagine as well. Like
Hmm.
you have this this like stopwatch that, sort of like a time clock that they set. Like, okay, it's gonna open on this date. Be
Hmm.
ready.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the timing was definitely valuable, and seeing a team come together every time. Seeing a group of 100 people in all different areas of the restaurant creating something new is like it's really inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something that becomes addictive, I guess, for lack of better words. Where you get that energy and you like
Mm-hmm.
vibe with a bunch of people that are just really enjoying what they're doing, and they do it well. And to have that come together and then have a restaurant that is making people happy, and seeing people come in and enjoying the bar program, enjoying the food, and then seeing that evolve is really cool. And like I said, I'm grateful for that. But seeing that and learning how that worked also allowed me to realize that I didn't want to do that for much longer because there was a certain amount of lack of control of what was going to happen next. I never knew what city I was going to be in next.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was living in San Francisco, and my next job took me to Berkeley across the, Oakland Bridge, and it's an hour commute. If I didn't want that job, I could have left, but I wouldn't have had a job, right? So, and then that finally ended up leading to me moving to Baltimore because they didn't have any new restaurant openings in San Francisco. So it's like you can take a layoff and work somewhere else, or you can go to Baltimore. So it's like, you know, Baltimore was a great city too. I enjoyed Baltimore, but to go another decade like that, not knowing where you're going to be and not being able to put roots down, it just felt like it was going to be pretty exhausting, you know.
Yeah. So 2012, and you start to conceptualize EMA. Can you talk about, you know, the that process, that inspiration, like where did the inspiration come from, and what is your creative process to sort of put that concept together?
Mm. Uh, well, the inspiration was kind of just what I love to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have when I moved to Baltimore. I didn't really know that I was going to open a ramen shop. I know I love noodles and I knew I loved ramen, but I hadn't completely sold myself on it. But
Mm-hmm.
everywhere every city I lived in, that was like my soul food, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
even in Detroit here, we would drive to Madison Heights from downtown Detroit to get pho
Right.
in like the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Chicago, that was my, you know, noodles was always what I wanted to eat, you know, and San Francisco, of course, has some of the best noodles in the world. So it was, you know, it was a kind of a culmination of all the things I like to eat, but also realizing that there was a void in Detroit, you know, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
anytime you think about opening a concept, you know, you think about, is there enough people doing this food in the area? Are they doing it well? You know, will people be happy to support you if you are in the community? You know, and I started looking at, you know, a theoretical menu that I would want to produce, and looking at Detroit and seeing that there wasn't a lot of options, you know, and I had a really good friend in Baltimore who had a ramen shop there. His name was Edward Kim, Korean gentleman, and just a fantastic chef. And I befriended him, and he and I kind of had a lot of, we shared a lot of information. And actually, I pretty much bought him. I bribed him for his knowledge of opening a ramen shop. Uh, I went to his restaurant and I was taking photos of his restaurant, like incognito, kind of like spying on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in one day when I was in there eating for like the third time, and I was at the bar, and I had a camera out there taking pictures and stuff. And I knew that was him, and I was like, "Hey, chef, how you doing?" And he's like, "I'm good. What's going on?" I was like, "I've been in your restaurant a lot lately. I love it, and I'm kind of spying on you. Can we get a beer sometime and talk about it?" And he met up with me. We got a beer, and I said, "Hey, I'm moving back to Detroit in a year, and I'm opening a ramen shop, and I love what you do here, and can I buy you dinner and drinks every Monday for a while and talk about business with you?" And he said, "Sure." And we met every Monday for about 7, 8 months. And I bought him dinner, and we sat at the bar and drank wine, and I had my notepad, and he kind of walked through how he got started and the pitfalls that he ran into. And I asked him a lot of questions, and at the end of it, I didn't have a template, but I had the confidence to be able to open a restaurant, and I had the confidence to to feel good about the numbers, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and to feel good about how I was going to operate and be viable. Um, so once again, we're going back to like the whole connection thing, you know, and like,
Yeah,
you know, build
absolutely.
relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that anybody that you come in contact with can have valuable information and lessons to be learned from, you know. And um, in his situation, it was, you know, he had all the information I needed, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not always the case, you know. These That kind of information and question or and knowledge can come from anywhere, you know. So to kind of keep that open mind, you know, and
Absolutely.
create people.
And the restaurant was an instant hit. Um, I think mostly, well, we didn't have anybody that was really doing ramen or noodle shops in Detroit, and maybe there was one or two, but not well.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
your flavor profiles are so like there's so much depth in the broths and everything and the sauces, and I think that really stands out. I think that's people notice immediately how how much your food stands out over something that they may have tried elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, and then you were voted Free Press Restaurant of the Year, was it?
Yeah, it's 2019,
Mm-hmm.
which was, it still is surreal,
Yeah.
and it's kind of even more surreal now because our great friend Mark Kurlianchik is now kind of doing his own thing, but he shepherded us through a lot of our first 2 3 years of the restaurant being open. He was he was a sounding board for us, and he, even before he gave us Restaurant of the Year or any other write-ups, he was somebody that we fed and that sat down in our restaurants and always had really good stuff to say, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and he ended up did giving us Restaurant of the Year, and he based it on the fact that we were doing this this next level of experience flavor wise, but in an accessible manner. Which I think
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of like that. It was a point of the industry that a lot of people were realizing that same thing. Like you don't have to spend a lot of money on a bowl of noodles or on an entree to really get a good experience. And it, to us it was humbling because we never expected to be voted for something of that nature, but it was also humbling because it reinforced a lot of the values that we had as corny as it is. We did have like core values that we set up before we opened our restaurants. We had these core values that um, my sister and Rob, our director of operations, we all went through this list of values that we wanted to make sure we kept intact through our growth, and a lot of those values were based on treating your guests like they were your guests, and like you value them being there every day, not not looking at people like they're lucky to be in your space, but that you're lucky to have them in your space.
Mm-hmm.
um, the value of building relationships with your staff, and the value of giving a dining value that is greater than the sum of the ingredients. Not gouging your customers price wise. And always having integrity in the quality of your ingredients. Those are things that we always valued. But to have Free Press and Mark Kurlianchik also recognize those things, even though we didn't tell him.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't tell him these are our core values. But he did this write up, and he was like, he named all these things, and we're like, wow, these are all the things that we value ourselves.
Yeah.
These are the
So
things that keep us doing what we do.
absolutely. So it's very apparent
Yeah,
in everything that you do.
yeah, and I think that's inspiring for anybody, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to work hard, but nobody wants to work hard if nobody's going to recognize it, right? It's like if you're putting your all into something every day, and that you are, but nobody ever notices. A lot of people do that, but it takes a very Buddha-based mind, a very Zen mind, to be able to keep doing that without getting any kind of acknowledgement that it's being received that way, right? Like, just to
Yeah. Yeah.
people,
It definitely takes a lot of stamina to keep going.
yeah, people do it.
Yeah.
A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people do it, and I'm not saying that it's not you know, that it doesn't happen. But I think for the general person, you know, it's like if you don't get some kind of like feedback saying, like affirming that, yeah, you're in the right path, you know, yeah, we,
Yeah.
you know, we see it, we feel what you're doing, you know, to never get that, it's tough, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. You're laying down, you're picking up when I'm laying down.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think, you know, it's like that symbiotic relationship where that's what feeds people restaurateurs and chefs and servers and bartenders. That's what feeds them. That's what keeps them doing what they're doing. It's not because they make a tip or they make a paycheck or they love to cook. It's because there's a direct correlation to the amount of energy and care you put into something that somebody is enjoying and what they're giving back to you and the enjoyment. And
Absolutely.
that doesn't mean that they're telling you that they enjoyed it all the time. It could mean that you're just looking over the bar and saying, and looking at them take a sip of your drink, and they just like, you can tell in their look in their eye that they just got transformed into like a place of like peace, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or you see a table of people eating and drinking, and they're just like having the best time, you know. They're not telling you directly that they love what you're doing, but you're seeing it and you're feeding off that energy no matter what, you know.
Yeah. It's just enhancing the experience.
Right.
It just blends in. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
as human beings that have multi-sensory, people don't have to tell you for you to feel that energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a DJ, you know, you feel the room, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know when the room is hot or when the room is dead.
Yeah, you feel it. We vibe off all that shit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Feel a vibe you can feel a vibe from 100 feet away. If it's not working, it's not working, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's the stuff that you see in a restaurant, you know, like, you know, you feel it. And then that's what keeps people really going, you know, and that's what keeps people excited and turned on to do new things and to push themselves to make great food and drinks and make great music, you know. It's like it's all that, you know, the intangible but connected stuff, you know, connected energy.
So we have a question. Cooper wants to know, what is your favorite dish at EMA?
Oh, at EMA?
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite dish in general also? But he's specifically asking about EMA because we're all gonna go eat EMA tomorrow because now that we're talking about it, I need some.
Favorite dish. Um, that's tough. I'll do my favorite at each property.
Okay.
My favorite in Corktown is the lobster udon.
Okay.
Not because it's the fanciest one, but because the broth for that dish is like my favorite broth. It's a lobster kaffir lime broth, and it's just very satisfying. It's rich. It's not heavy, but it's very rich and very complex. And I don't eat lobster very often, so like when I eat that bowl, I know I'm like giving myself a treat, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also only available at that restaurant, and oh, actually Madison Heights too. But it's it's just a special experience for me still.
Mm-hmm.
In Midtown, the Japanese yams are my favorite.
Okay.
So olive oil poached and then flash fried Japanese yam wedges, and they're finished with a vegan XO sauce and chili oil, candied pumpkin seeds, and scallion, and it's like comfort food, crispy on the outside, savory, a little bit of sweet, a little bit of tangy. It's a really comfy dish and healthy too. Yeah. And then Madison Heights, I would say they do the clam dish really well out there. Our steamed clams,
Mm-hmm.
great job with. I don't know what it is. It's really weird because we have recipes that we have at multiple restaurants, but some restaurants just do certain things better. We don't know why. It just always ends up being my favorite there, you know. And same ingredients, but they do a little.
Some magic, some suburban magic out there.
It really is. It's something with that
Strip mall vibes or something.
that
Oh.
48701 zip code. I don't know, you know, maybe
It must be just being near all of the other like Asian food establishments,
yeah,
you know, like you have to like make sure your game is properly stepped up.
yeah. There's also a Best Buy across the street, so maybe we're getting some of that like that straight digital
You're
energy.
getting that like that 5G.
Yeah, 5G. That's right, 5G. Yeah, it's a 5G.
Yep, the 5G from Best Buy. Yep.
Yeah, love.
Mm-hmm. Just making those steamed clams like that extra.
Yeah.
um, so we don't have a ton of time left, and I want to be respectful of your time. So I wanted to ask you, so Midtown's been open for 2 years now?
About a year and 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you starting to plan for what's next? You feel like, you know, you've kind of stabilized that restaurant and now you're looking to, you've always got something planned for what's next?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many great people with us that we're always thinking about something we want to do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it's this year or this month or this week, but we always have way more exciting ideas than we have opportunities to make them something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the discipline of being in the food world or in any creative world is like just because you want to do it and you're excited about it doesn't mean you need to do it, you know,
Uh-huh.
and filtering through like all those great ideas and exciting things that you want to do and figuring out if there's something that need to happen and whether or not they can happen at our restaurants now or not, you know. So yeah, we have a lot of really fun stuff planned. Like for example, Midtown, we opened that we 3 months before COVID hit. We opened.
Mm-hmm.
We had Mike Fotis put in a club style sound system in that building.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Yep, you had like a little, like, so you could have super spreader events.
Oh yeah, every day you're gonna spread so much badass vibes. We're still gonna spread some badass vibes superbly, but it's
Mm-hmm.
a different super spreader event.
Mm-hmm.
But we would have spread a lot more than that if we went through COVID. We didn't realize that was going to be happening. Long story short, we spent a lot of time planning and getting excited for events to happen there. They were never going to be large scale events. They were always going to be something more boutique and like a DJ's DJ event, you know, where like whoever we had perform would have a platform to play music there that they wouldn't play somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So like you don't have to worry about pushing the dance floor necessarily. You didn't have to worry about playing within your genre necessarily. You know, you could play whatever you wanted. Kind of like more of like a listening room kind of experience, you know.
Yeah.
Still something we're working on. So that's a goal for this year is to be able to start utilizing that. Maybe just for a once a month kind of one off kind of thing, or maybe a rotating event, or excuse me, maybe have like a weekly 2 or 3 events that just do like some chill stuff, and then have a one off once a month, you know. But that's still something that we're really excited about. And then Corktown, also we have a patio there that we are ready to program.
Okay.
And also, once again, not program it as like a venue that would be consistently moving new events, but program it just to be an outlet for like have like a Sunday reggae night or daytime reggae on the patio, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have,
Oh, can't wait for stuff like that to happen. That
no,
sounds amazing.
right. You know, a dancehall reggae night, dub reggae night, you know, from 4
Hmm.
until 10 every Sunday, you know,
Yep.
4 until midnight.
Walk back and forth between Motor City Wine and EMA.
Yep, exactly.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so we have a whole bunch of programming that we want to do there that also, once again, it's not going to be like us putting on a bunch of like shows, but just having like a platform for some really eclectic stuff to go on and for people to want to be outside and just vibing, you know.
Hmm.
Um, that's in our immediate scope, just getting ready for summer and making sure that we can have a good environment for people to get out of their houses and do it in a manner that they feel safe about, you know. And like we actually just expanded the Corktown patio another like 40 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but
Nice.
so when we are able to open up, we're gonna have plenty of room for seating outside on the patio, and plus another lounge area where we can have like you know, cocktails and stuff being served, and just have it be a little more expansive. Um, so yeah, so that's our primary focus right now. But we do have you're the first person I've really told this publicly, but we do have a another concept that we're working on opening probably within the next 3 or 4 months. Um, it's going to be another restaurant concept, and it's not going to be EMA at all.
Okay.
Um, it's going to be the same style, casual, super fun, and really focused on flavor and curating a really relaxed and fun vibe, but not noodles and broth. Something different.
Okay.
So
I'm super excited. You guys heard it here first. First, you got a exclusive on my
yeah, it, you know,
on my Instagram live series. I'm
I
getting all of the exclusive details.
on your Instagram live, Jan, and you know what? I just want to also finish by saying that you know it's been such a tough year for everybody and all of my team. We had a general consensus with our managers that we wanted to come out of 2020 with something new to show for it, and that's kind of something we talked about. We've been working on this project for almost a year, and we kept saying we don't want to have us just be a victim of 2020. We want to be able to have something new to show for it and something positive to have come from it, you know. And
Hmm.
you know, I just I think we all know how tough it was last year. We don't need to dwell on that anymore, and we need to just take that energy and push it into what we do in our daily lives, you know, and uh,
Go out and party and have fun and love each other and eat some good food.
love each other is the main thing, you know.
Hmm.
I just see so many people caught up in so much like so much tension and negativity still to this day, you know. It's like we need to get beyond that and just and love each other and just and get out and get some sun and have some great music and some great food, and I think it's going to go a long way. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to grabbing a beer with you on the patio in Corktown.
I would love that more than anything.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was so fun. I really appreciate everybody jumping on here and saying hello. I want to say hi to saw Darren from Germany. It looks
Darren,
like Rob Stone is on here. Jay Star. There's a lot of fans of yours.
I wish
So
better at multitasking that I could have actually seen all that. I was just trying not to like show my St. Patty's Day buzz. I was like just trying to focus, you know.
that your job is focus. My job is to orchestrate. So it's all good.
So you got
So,
a dashboard there, huh?
yeah, exactly. I've got a watch so we know what time it is. I've got my notes. So yeah. I'm like Oprah, but not at all. Okay, well have a good night.
Thank you, Jan. I'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.